of curious about this professor thing. You asked me about why I'm doing this. Can I take charge of this a little bit? I'm kind of curious.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Now there's another, I'm going to say victim or subject, interviewee.
Yes.
You also asked the same thing of, why did you choose this as a profession? Does it seem like a odd job or a great job, or like is it?
I think it's just interesting to see how people got to where they are, because it's such, you can be multifaceted in your choice to become a professor, and it's not like you go to a professor school and they manufacture professors and everybody is from the same thing.
It's pretty close. But it's not exactly, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, something led you and the other people that we ask to become a professor, and it's just interesting, especially for me as somebody who's considering becoming a professor in the future.
Oh, okay.
To see what led you to that. And so I also relate to I love school and want to be in school forever. So
Did you clean erasers?
Yes, I did.
Okay. There you go.
They were,
that's a prerequisite.
They were dry erase marker erasers.
There's a couple of years between us. That's true. That would explain that.
I mean, I'm surprised you escaped without getting a lung disease. So.
Well, it did stunt my growth. Does it seem weird to you what I do or what other faculty do? Can you imagine, for example, can you imagine yourself not doing exactly what I do, but something like it? Or
I think it's very interesting. For instance, I'm going to school for English education.
Oh, okay.
So right now I also relate to the liking school thing. You get out of high school and you're like, what practical job would be fun?
Yeah.
Well, teaching.
Super portable. Taken all over the place.
True.
Yeah. It's almost, in a way, for me, and maybe for you too as well, it didn't feel like a drive so much as it just felt like there was like this inertia. There was like this force. It was almost passive. If there was anything like active about it, I'd have to try to stop it. It just seemed to go on its own. I didn't know where it was coming from. This drive was natural. I was almost meant to do this in a way. And like I'm just like, my legs are kind of going, you're going to cut my head off. And I just would have continued down this. In fact, I might have been actually better in the classroom without a head, actually. So.
But you would have been shorter too. So.
Well, I'd be Blanchard size, and well, then you wouldn't respect me either. So we can't have that. So, but it does seem like that it went on its own momentum, and I didn't have to push. I mean, in a sense, right? I mean, I had to work just ridiculously hard. It's ridiculous. A 55-year-old man can't do this. An 20-year-old, 25 or 30-year-old can do it. It's just too much. It's insane. It's completely insane. But in some ways, it just seemed like I had no choice. I had to do this, if it makes any sense at all. There was an inevitability to it.
It was
people would tell me, like, that's stupid. The numbers are stacked against you. You're an idiot to think that you can get a PhD, because most people drop out along the way, and they get a tenure-track job, and then they get tenure. It'll never happen. So it's weird that way. If you start to tell your faculty, like, hey, I'd like to go to graduate school and do what you do, either they'll go, oh, Holly, oh, and they'll close the door, and they'll say, honey, come here, and maybe someone will give you a hug. No, you might get counseled.
I've had a lot of support, actually.
Oh, that's good, okay, because the numbers are terrible.
Okay.
Oh, golly. Attrition rates in PhD programs are horrific. I think in my program it was 2 out of 10 made it from beginning to PhD. Oh, and that's not unusual. So it's the attrition rate is terrible. And what's really ironic is that seemingly most of the people who do drop out, and that's the great majority, are a lot smarter than the people who actually make it through. There needs to be, maybe this bodes well for you, I don't know, that there seems to be there's a lot of folks who will go like, this is ridiculous. I'm working way too hard. I'm way too stressed out. There is certainly something less painful than this I can do with my life. And they're out of there, right? Okay. And there's me without a head. And then you just kind of like stumble in this, hopelessly across the finish line. There's a great, I think what is needed to get a PhD, to get through this kind of program is as much, maybe more perspiration than inspiration. You'd have to want it so bad. Because it's going to be so unattractive. It's going to be so unattractive. And it's so long and endless. Not to scare you off necessarily, but to get a PhD, because this is kind of relevant, you asked me about this job. You know, and you guys are undergraduates, and so when you complete a course of study, you're done. When you complete some courses, a bunch of them, you're done. With a PhD, you're done when your committee says you're done. When you get the signatures, you're done. If that's 4 years or 20 years or never. It's not a matter of completing a body of coursework, right? When they think that you can do this work independently and train other people, well, then you get this degree. But that seems arbitrary and capricious, right? It's nuts.
So could you compare the PhD systems across the nation to the Electoral College then?
That is brilliant. That's really good. And then it's arbitrary and capricious.
Yeah.
Maybe just that'll be the takeaway. This will be the headline of like the American news. History professor calls Electoral College arbitrary and capricious. Which I'm not. Where's the camera? Which I am not.
If you could have dinner with any author,
Ooh.
dead or alive, who would it be, and what would you talk about?
Oh gosh, any author, huh? You know, actually, this person's not known as being an author, but he's very well written. That's Richard Milhouse Nixon. He spent many, many hours trying to keep something of a legacy and to rewrite history in something more favorable to himself after he left office in the middle 1970s. And I think Richard Nixon's one of these really interesting characters who's around for so much. And I just think that lunch with him would be terrific. I could learn about the Second World War and the Cold War and the Red Scare within that. I could talk about his trips to countries and his dealings with other big figures like Mao and stuff like that, and dealing with other politicians here in America and the office and the American people. I think that would be fantastic to talk with Richard Nixon. He was a real political animal, and since I look at politics from the outside a lot, I'd like to know more about it from the inside. I think he'd be a great person to have lunch with.
You mentioned that he was going to rewrite history in a way, right?
Sure.
And
yeah, well, he spent many hours penning books and articles to try to do exactly that. And he's a person of some letters, too. He's good. So I think I'd pick him. I mean, I could pick someone else. It's more conventional, I suppose. I like Steinbeck a lot. He's my favorite author.
Ooh. I wrote a drama with him in it.
Really?
Yeah. He was pursuing Sylvia Plath. She wasn't interested.
Was that for American Way?
Yes, it was.
Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh.
Are you guys maybe even small fans of Steinbeck?
I do.
Oh, I do like Steinbeck. I do get him and Hemingway confused a lot.
Oh, I understand, sure.
But
yeah. There's something about what Steinbeck can take me places, and I'm just there, right?
Well, he did a lot of realism in his writing.
Oh, yeah,
so
right.
That makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There was a Sweets and Stories a year ago, 2 years ago, and I read a little passage, my favorite passage from Grapes of Wrath. And I think what I said to the people there in the audience was that if you read this part of Grapes of Wrath, like I do anyway, I feel like I'm inside that automobile. I'm inside that Hudson, right? Going from Oklahoma to California. He's going over some mountains at some point, and he's the driver of this vehicle, right? And the driver feels things with his hands, with the seat of his pants, and he sees things, and he smells things. He smells the hot radiator, right? And there's a tap. Oh my gosh, what is it, right? Is it? Am I losing like a piston? Am I going to blow a piston or something like that? Am I going to throw a rod or something like that? What's going on here, right? And he talks about the transmission whine and the flap of the tires on the road. Oh my gosh, a flap. Maybe we're losing air, and so he takes you all over this car. You feel like you're like driving this thing, and you can feel the tension through the page. I just think he's a master. So all his books do that for me. The ones I've read. I haven't read everything, but yeah, I think he's fantastic.
So that sums it up for this week's English Club TV. Thank you for joining us and hope to see you next time.
Bye.